Welcome back to our Ride or Die podcast. It's going to be a great day today because I've got a special guest on our musical journeys part of the Ride or Die podcast. Great friend, like a family member to me because we have a mutual friend, Scott Gamble. God bless him. God rest his soul, who's in heaven. But we have a common friendship there. And so that's how we got connected. You may know Charlie, some of his family. We'll get into all of that here in a little bit. It's exciting. It's an exciting day. Charlie, welcome to the Ride or Die podcast. So
I'm
glad that you're here.
so glad to be here, man. Thanks for the invite.
Hey, listen, you are from down around Alabama, Hartselle, Alabama. That's a small little town. I've been there. Scott and I actually visited you on our en route to the Brownsville Pensacola revival years ago, and I stopped in at your house. You were having a small group meeting with some leaders, I think, in your church, and you've been a longstanding pastor. You just shifted out of the pastoral role, local pastor, and moved to Nashville, Tennessee. You are on the move, man, and I'm excited for you. But let me get this started today, okay? Now you've spent your life both as a pastor and a musician. Now, when you look back, where have you seen music accomplish something that preaching alone couldn't?
Well, I'm a firm believer of the fact that that one of the things that you know Lucifer was supposedly the angel that was in charge of worship, and so that you know I feel like that thing crept into the life of Cain even because part of his lineage was a character named Jubal, which we
Mhm.
get jubilation.
Mm.
And so Cain was my namesake. The reason he killed his brother is he's jealous of him. And
Mm.
if you've ever been around musicians, that's exactly what you find. We used to have a coffee house. We'd have bands come in, and every time they'd come in, there'd be one group of musicians wander in the back, and they'd sit back there with their arms crossed because everybody can play a guitar better than you can,
Sure.
and you can sing better than you can. So,
Absolutely.
but anyway, when I first got, well, when I was a little child, I was singing. I remember singing. I don't remember this, but my dad took me for a haircut, and I would sit up on the barber seat and sing to everybody in the room. And my mom was very musical, and so I started out singing, but I was lost, and so I was in the choral group in high school my senior year, and but I went off to college and I'm lost as a ball in high weeds. And so I'm just, going to bars and different things, but I didn't play an instrument. So it's real hard to strike up a gig when you don't, there are not a lot of a cappella groups out there.
True.
So, but when the minute I got saved, I went and bought a $200 guitar. Yeah. And I started learning to play and started writing songs. And next thing you know, because I'm the new kid on the block and I've got a testimony, every church around wanted me to come to their youth group. And so I just got busy doing that. And ironically, the we had my little brother had started a coffee house, which is it was just a youth gathering. Now they have actual coffee in the coffee house. We didn't have any coffee, couldn't afford it, but we'd have music groups come in, and so I was doing music, and in that little coffee house group, one summer I didn't tell you this, but one summer we were having these Saturday night meetings, and I just started keeping a database of the number of people that were getting saved. And one summer, a guy called me from Gadsden, Alabama. He said, "Is this the guy that runs the firehouse?" I said, "Well, close enough, but yes." He pulled a school bus in there, and 60 kids got off, came
Wow.
into our thing. I was doing the music and preaching that night. All 60 of them got saved and got back on the bus. I thought, this is a drive-through salvation farm for me.
Wow.
So one night I'm out in my backyard praying, and that summer we had seen 500 people come to Jesus. Okay, in our little bitty thing, and the Lord spoke to me and He said, "You can't." you can't father these children and
Mm,
not raise them.
mm,
I can't just get them saved and say, well, I hope you find a church and hope you, because if they'd have found a church, they'd already found one, if they
right.
could. So we started having Sunday morning services, and Lord, I'm telling you, it's like, but I'm still trying to travel and do music. And so I had somebody that would fill in for me when I was gone. And because you asked this question, and I feel like that I believe you can do more. I believe you can go deeper in music spiritually than sometimes the spoken word,
Mm,
because just the word, we get to where we can kind of drum that out. We can
mm,
block it out, but that tune has something about it that carries it deeper. I remember we were talking about, there's certain commercials or jingles that if I was to start them, you could repeat them because you didn't plan on memorizing that,
mm.
but because it's in music, it just finds a way to imprint us. And so anyway, I love playing music, and I love the passion of it, and I really love I've always been that way. That's one thing, is that I play an electric guitar, and we get pretty hard because I hate the devil and I want to smash his face with it. But there's just something about in that environment when you start see God's got to deal with us, that he inhabits our praise. No
Yes, he
matter what's
does.
going on in our life, if we
Absolutely.
praise him, he'll come. And when that presence comes, there's just there's nothing like it. There's nothing else in the world that there's nowhere else in the world you can go to experience that moment. And so I remember, listen, I used to go to denominational churches when I started, and I'd spend 30 minutes explaining to them why we need to sing and clap our hands.
Mm.
But they would finally do it. And I've had so many of these guys that catch me afterward in tears and go, man, when you showed up, I didn't like you, but boy, you really, I said, well, all right, just give me a minute, But anyway, I don't think I answered your question, but
Oh no, you answered it actually perfectly fine. People, it's a universal language. Music is, and
yes,
music's, it just strikes a chord, no pun intended, in the hearts of people. It really brings people together, and heaven's going to be one big chorus of
right,
musical praise unto one God, and it's going to be a
yes,
spectacular time. Um, people know Cain, the musical group Cain, the award-winning artist Cain, as a successful Christian music group, but they know less about the home that they grew up in. Those kids grew up in. So, what values or rhythms did you and your wife Sherry intentionally cultivate that shaped who they became?
well, I think the most, I look at this, and I'm just extremely fortunate. And we talk with a lot of parents about their kids and their, the difficulties they run into. And only thing I can tell you that I feel like was the most successful thing for us is that, number one, you know, we didn't have two lives. We were the same person on Monday as we were on Sunday morning. We were this our life was centered around our relationship with Jesus, and it wasn't like we were, stiff backed and we tried to be as you know fitting in with our times, not just some weirdo religious freak over here, but we tried to show our kids that a relationship with God is a relationship with God, and He knows everything about you, and He walks with you all the time. And so, what we did was a couple of things we did is that we lived the same way around them all the time. We shared the same music with them. They loved contemporary Christian music, and so did we. And so that was the music of our home. And one of the things that I told them early on is that you can do anything you want any night of the week as long as you do it at our house.
Mm,
That means, and so, boy, we always had kids at our house. There were cars parked in our yards, and always kids there. And so, my wife and I made a decision early on to homeschool our children, not so we could be weird and have an herb garden, but because we felt like that. And one of the things that we both realized is that decisions that I would be making as a senior in high school about drugs and sex and alcohol and so forth, they're having to make in grade school.
Mm.
They're in fact in Hartselle at the junior high school. That's sixth grade, seventh, eighth grade. There were 2 girls pregnant last year. And
Mm.
so what I found out was is that in my kids' age, they were forced to make decisions as children that they're not equipped to make. So we decided to homeschool them. Of course, this is the problem with homeschooling. You can teach them, and I mean, I was teaching them algebra. I was teaching, I'm an engineer, but the irony is that we can get all their schooling done in 2 hours. When they go to public school, they're sitting there for 8 hours. So uh, when they got to the certain age where I felt like that they would start to feel weird, and out of place, we let them go in public school with the understanding that if their character dipped even the slightest little bit, that we were not going to continue with this. But they went in and I'm just so proud of them. My son became the team captain and played baseball and football. My girls were cheerleaders. One of them was homecoming queen. The other one was Miss HHS. And so, they came and stepped into a leadership role. And because I feel like we gave them the opportunity to not be shaped by the world before they could be shaped by the word. And
Wow.
so, you know, and so that I feel like that after that, then let me tell you this one story. All right. My girls were on the cheerleading squad, and they had this kind of a token Bible study every week that they would go to. And so my girls went to this guy's house, and he'd been doing it for years. And so one of the girls on the squad had gone on a missions trip. And in that missions trip, she had opened her Bible and prayed this prayer: Lord, whatever you want, I want to give all of myself to you. And she said something happened to her that night. And she went back to her denominational preacher, and he couldn't tell her what it was. And she went to her youth pastor, and he couldn't tell her what it was. So she asked my daughter, and my daughter said, maybe you need to talk to my dad. So she comes over one night with her Bible, and I just kind of said, well, here's what I think happened. I was showing her in the Bible the baptism of the Holy Spirit. And when I show her scripture, she'd slap the table and write notes like nobody ever showed her this before, and she's kind of angry. Well, when she left the next week, all the cheerleaders wanted to come to my house to have Bible study. Don't you know that made me the most popular guy? Well, that night we prayed for several of the girls, and they get baptized in the Holy Spirit. The next week, the cheerleaders come and the whole basketball team. The week after that, but in 3 weeks' time, we had 75 kids show up. They would walk in my front door. I didn't even know who they were. They just opened the door and walk in. And we had all the furniture pushed back, and we had people all over the floor. And what we would do is we'd turn the lights out, and I had a little black light to put on the mantle. So we just kind of make it intimate. We do worship. And in the middle of,
Wow.
I know, man. And in the middle of one night, this big, tall hand sticks up, and I said, what do you want, Jeremy? And he said, I want to know if I could get saved tonight. And when he did, 5 more hands said, me too, me too. I'm thinking, if they're jumping in the boat, it's pretty easy to catch fish, right?
My God.
And we had revival. I mean, it was just like what I always dreamed of seeing. And kids were getting saved and going out and getting other people saved. It was just unbelievable. And then somebody started spreading rumors. We had like I had an exchange student come over here from somewhere in Europe, didn't even speak English. And I showed that video that night. Have you ever seen where that guy's preaching and then the rapture happens and everybody's gone?
Yes.
I showed him that, and he wanted to talk to me. And he went back in the back and he kept touching his chest. He said, when you showed that, I felt something in here. And so I prayed with him to receive Jesus because it was so loud. Anyway, my point being is that because it's a small town and everybody started talking about it, it died out. But boy, just for a moment, I saw what's possible, and it was unbelievable. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but
and that will totally ruin you for the rest of your ministry as far as regular just ho-hum church.
Right.
You'll never settle for that. God, he will do that. He'll give you defining moments to where you just have a mark to shoot at for the rest of your life.
Right.
You're always trying to grasp that, trying to go after that. Totally get it. Powerful, powerful testimony. They bring the school bus to you. They bring kids. The cheerleaders bring the boys, but for God reasons, not for godless reasons.
Oh, I know.
Wow. Powerful. Well, every family, Charlie, has defining moments. Was there a season when you realized that your children's calling was becoming something bigger than your own dreams for them?
Oh, well, of course, they're right where I always dreamed they'd be. So I'm just saying, I knew from the very beginning, they were all had their own little special gifts and things. And like my oldest, I've got a recording of her when she was 4 years old singing "Yes, Jesus Loves Me," and it's just she's always had perfect pitch, and she's always had she could sit down. She's self-taught. I taught her one song on the guitar, and next thing you know, she's playing the piano. So
Wow.
and then my son, I believe, has a photographic memory. He's yeah, it's pretty scary. And then Madison is the peacemaker, and the she's the one that she's on. Madison's on the left there, and she's the one that if she got mad when I was teaching her algebra that she didn't already know it. I'm like, man, you kind of got to let me teach it to you, okay? But I just knew they had something about them that was very special. And from the beginning, they called me from college and said they was going to enter this contest. They put together a group and had written a song, and so they were entering a contest open for Dave Barnes, and there were thousands of people that entered, and they won. And boy, we pumped that thing up and sent it to everybody we know. But so they won the open for him, and the minute they did, their grandfather stepped in, who used to be in music, years and years ago, and he tried to scoop them up and take them the country route, which I was not very much a fan of. And in fact, I kind of got nosed out of away from the negotiating table, and I was just waiting my time. And so they went trying to do country music, and they got several awards and newcomer of the song, but from the artist and radio, but nothing
Was this in Nashville? Did they
in
take them
Nashville.
to
Yeah,
take?
they
So
moved up here
okay.
and started chasing that, and but they could never get a radio cut. They could never get a record deal.
Mm.
So after, I don't know, 2 or 3, 4 years of that, my daughter was sitting at a table with an A&R director from a record company, and they shared a song they just recorded, and the guy says, well, what we're really looking for is a song like this. And they played a song called "It Takes a B to Know a B," a country song.
So derogative, a very just a derogative
Well,
title.
yeah, I'm just and my oldest looked at him and said, we're never going to record that song.
Mm.
And so they quit.
Wow, that's
They
integrity.
well, it was I tell you the truth, it was integrity, but it was also, they just run out of, there were no more options.
Mm.
And so they just decided, we're going to quit. We'll just go. They found a church that was run by a lot of young folks, and they went and got on the parking detail and mixing coffee and ushering, and then gradually somebody asked them if they sang. They said, well, yeah. And so they got on the worship team, and 2 weeks after they got on the worship team, there was a guy in the crowd walks up to him and says, hey, I think I can get you a deal, but I got to ask you a question. Do you want to go country or Christian?
Mm.
And I got the phone call from my middle daughter, and she said, Dad, I want you to brace yourself, but we think we're going to go Christian. And I'm going,
You're
I
excited.
want to shout, but I had to play it down because I didn't want to run them off. Because I haven't been notified about anything, and now they're letting me know this. And this is what I told them, and I mean this with all my heart. I said, if you feel like this is a consolation prize or a step down, then don't do it. Wow. Because to me, it's the highest calling on earth to get to use this gift to glorify God. And they did. And I'm going to tell you, they were signed, and they recorded that Lazarus record. And next thing you know, they had, out of their first 5 songs, that they had 3 number one. Their first 3 went number one, and the next 2 were in the top 5. And I don't know I don't know who all's done that, but I was pretty proud of that fact. And they've just been, I mean, it's just been going and going. And I got a chance to go out with him. I don't know if he's going to ask me this, but because when I first got saved, I went to a Christian concert. It was Mile Lefevre and Broken Heart.
I know
And,
Mylon Lefevre. Yeah, Mylon Lefevre.
and I
Yeah.
just, you know, and see, all I've ever been to is secular concerts, and I go in there and there's 2,000 people, and the stage is lit up. They're blowing stuff up. They're rocking the house, but it was different because they sang one song that everybody was singing with them, and when they finished it, the crowd kept singing, and they just backed up and just let it go. And I thought, God, and I just felt the presence of God. And then Mylon gets up and he preaches a little bit, and then he gives an altar call, and 150 people go down to the thing, and they said, we need people that pray. Well, you know, I'm 10 minutes on the Lord, so I'm going, you know.
Sure,
And
you're ready.
I went
Qualified.
backstage, and they shared the gospel, the 4 spiritual laws, and then they prayed with them to receive Jesus, and then they hooked them up with a local pastor in their town. And to me, that was what Christian music was all about. That's what it was. And so, but over the years, I've seen it drift away from that and get further and further to where it becomes more of an entertainment. And so, anyway, so my kids asked me to go out with them one weekend. We do 3 shows, uh, and so I go do my 25 minutes, and I'm just rocking, and then Logan, my son, says, Dad, during the middle of our set, we have a place where we just get around the piano and sing worship. We don't have a list. We just kind of sing what's come. Why don't you go down front and pray with people? I'm like, okay. And so I go
Boy.
down front, and the stage is like this tall. I'm standing up. And so I'm just kind of sliding that in front of everybody, you know, hey. And everybody's cocking their head looking at me. And then all of a sudden, this one woman comes to me, and she realizes what I'm there for. And I start praying with her, and boy, all of a sudden I start pulling people. And that night we got a lady out of a wheelchair. I mean,
Wow.
and it was just unbelievable. It was like, and I'm thinking, because what happened is I realized these people are not, you know, they're not all necessarily born again. They're not all necessarily going to church. They're just fans of music. And here's an opportunity that has
Wow.
been gone for 20 years that we could bring the presence of God in, and they can feel his presence and respond. Well, the next night, I go out there and I'm pulling them out. I'm not even waiting for them to come. And man, we had church. And so after that, the next time the kids went out, it was so interesting. They had John get up and play piano, and my kids came down front. And then the people that work in their kitchen, and then some of the other staff, they had 9 or 10 people down in front, and people were coming out of the crowd to get prayer. And I'm thinking, we're turning this thing back to what the way it should be. And so I'm just, you know, I've got a vision for this, but you know, I'm just that crazy guy from Hartselle.
That's amazing. I'm looking at the accolades here. I'll just give it just a few here. Cain, the musical group Cain, Kalo Fan Award for top breakout single. That's Rise Up, one of my favorites,
Yeah,
maybe my favorite of theirs. You have cassette. That I listen to a cassette. Now, kids, cassette, that's a tape cassette. You'll have to Google it,
Google it.
figure it out. But I got this cassette with this guy by the name of Charley Cain, and I'm listening to it. And I grew up on Southern gospel and bluegrass and things like that in church, as we knew it back in the day. There was, if you brought a drum head into the church, you might as well have brought
Right.
a snake because it was the demon. It was a devil.
Right.
But when I heard your music, I'm like, that's my kind of music. Who is this guy? And my friend Scott introduced me to you through that cassette. And I said, he's got like a lion's mane. He looks like a lion, and he sings like one. I love it. But I like all of your music. But your kids are good too. Okay, all
Okay.
right. So Kayla Fan Award for top breakout single. GMA Dove Awards for their television series Chasing Cain. Um, uh, Host of the 2023 K-Love Fan Awards. I mean, there's all kinds of accolades and things like that you could talk about. Um, but as a father, now you're old dad here. As a father, how did you balance encouraging excellence without trying to, tying your children's identity to achievement or success?
Well, I grew up without it. Okay. And, you know, I was just thinking about, I love my father, but my father's father died when he was 9. This is in the middle of the 30s,
Mm.
middle of the Depression. And so he had to be the man of the house. And I remember he told me that he worked plowing behind a mule all day for $1. So he didn't know how to be a dad. He didn't have a dad. And was when I first had my kids, I think I'm pretty consistent in this, that I've told them every day of their life that I love them and I'm proud of them. And not because of what they do, but because of who they are.
Right.
But because I heard somebody say a long time ago, you can't spoil your kids by doing good things for them. You spoil them by not giving them discipline. You spoil them by not giving them boundaries and showing them
Mm.
where, what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable, and that you don't hold them to a higher standard than you would hold yourself.
Mm.
And so I just feel like that, you know, I and I was the person that if I ever made a mistake or did something wrong, I told them I was sorry and I asked for their forgiveness, so that they didn't. Because I mean, I remember, many times that, and I'm not trying to dog my dad. I'm just saying that, his way of dealing with things was if he made a mistake, he'd just get quiet for a day and then come back tomorrow and act like nothing ever happened.
Mm.
And so you don't ever get resolution of that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just feel like we've had really good communication and honesty and openness. And but they just I'm I don't know everybody else, but I've met a lot of them, of other artists and other people, and I can just tell you that from the get go, I feel like part of the deal when they went into chasing after this record deal and didn't get it, that they went back to just being servants. And now that they're in, after 7 years of this, they're not trying to be the star. They're trying to go in and love people, and connect with people. And I feel like that for the most part. And there's a lot of, there are a lot of folks out there that take advantage of that. And, unfortunately, inside the church, we've got a great populace of people that they're not servants, they're just takers. I get it. But if you do any of this as you do, you run into this yourself. And but so you have to. It's like TD Jake says, you don't pull them to your heart because they'll kill you.
Mm.
You have to keep them at arm's length, because if you don't, they'll get close enough. They don't mean to, but they'll just claw you to death.
Yeah, certain
So
people
anyway,
have that effect for sure.
well, it's true of anybody. It's not just ministers or anything. You just got to realize that I get my joy and my happiness from my relationship with Lord, and I'm here to serve others. Anyway,
And that's where your identity is anyway, right?
right.
It's not tied up into your ministry or the healing lines or the big fan base or what have you, the following that you get on social media. You told me that you have been married for, I believe, 41 years.
41 years.
So you've been married to the same woman
Same
for
woman.
41 years, and there she is in a picture. I'm putting it up on the screen right now. Beautiful lady. I think you married up, bro. You're a handsome man, but I tell
Hey,
you what, man, she's a beautiful lady, and I know that she's a solid bedrock mom for those kids and a wife for you.
well, when I met her, uh, her reputation preceded her, and I was going to Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, to go do a concert, and the guy that had invited me was telling me about one of the kids in his youth that was a senior in high school, and that was just leading people to Jesus, and that didn't have any family support, or they had just done this all on her own. And when I met my wife, she got born again at an FCA conference, went with a whole bunch of girls up to the mountains of Tennessee, and came back changed, and she had to call people to get rides to church as a junior high kid, and I'm just thinking, I don't know very many that would go to that effort at that age to ride to church with a stranger. But she was so hungry for God. In fact, when I met her, I I've said this so many times, but we actually had to write letters. I don't know, you may have to Google that too, but it was a postal thing, and we would write a letter, and she would always send me one back and say, "I love you the most in the whole wide world except for God," and that would hurt my feelings so bad because my ego just couldn't handle it. But if there's anything that's the secret, and every marriage that I know that's successful, if Jesus isn't, Jesus is the center of it. If he isn't there, then it's all based upon how you make me feel about myself, right? And Lord, these young guys, you got to realize, take a look at me. You're going to look like me before too long. So you need to realize, if that's what won her, it ain't going to keep her. You better have something to found your. Well, thank you for
Just thought
that.
I would help you with the picture
Okay,
pop
help me
up.
out, brother. No, there has to be a deeper foundation than feeling, because marriage is something holy and sacred. Gene Simmons from Kiss.
I know of him, sure.
I know
Absolutely.
him. Well, he had been famous for saying that he's been happily unmarried to his wife, to his live-in
Girlfriend, yes.
girlfriend, and they've had a couple of kids and all that.
Shannon Tweed, right?
Well, she pressed him to get married, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you, they came on television, and you can just see the change in Shannon, being his wife, than being his living girlfriend. There's something came over her, and it's because it's the way it ought to be. It's the way it. You don't care what you say or what your intentions. When you make a covenant, it just transformed that woman. And so, I mean, I'm not following them or big fans, but that kind of had an impact on me, because I'm thinking there's a visual to show you that's what it means to be married versus
Absolutely.
living together. Anyway,
Absolutely. No, that's absolutely true. And if you're listening out there, just so that I want you to know that it's a good thing if your fiance loves Jesus more than he
that's
loves
right.
you. That's the person you want to marry.
That is the one.
If Jesus is second or equal, there's a problem. You don't want him. You don't want him in the back seat. You want to put him up front. Well, Charlie, you're a great storyteller. I'm just going to just allude to this real briefly, but storytelling, it comes naturally to you, and but what makes a story memorable? How does God use stories to shape your own faith?
Well, believe it or not, I'm very intense, but I love to laugh. Okay.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking about writing a book about this, because there's so many things. I'm gonna tell you this. You may have to edit it out, but it is the funniest story. I met somewhere, and I'm doing a concert, and I have an altar call, and a lady comes to the front, and she says, "Brother Charlie, I have a demon. It's the demon of flatulence."
Oh my goodness!
And I'm thinking, and I'm looking at the other guys with me, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm surely not going to say, "Come out in Jesus' name."
Oh my
I don't know
goodness!
where to lay my hands. And it was like, so we get all kinds. One time we were up in East Kentucky, and the directions basically said, it included the phrase, "and you leave the paved road." So we're up there in the middle. I mean, literally, we couldn't drive our bus up there. We had to haul our stuff up through the woods to get to this place. And it was just so funny, because I preached, and I was praying for people, and everybody was falling out, wide awake.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would take a blanket and wrap them up like a cocoon
Mm.
on the floor. And I finally asked somebody, and what had happened is they'd seen that on TBN when they'd take something and cover the women's skirt, and they thought they were all supposed to be wrapped up.
So they just put him like a
And they're
bait,
all laying
like,
there
like Jesus in the manger with the swaddling clothes. They swaddled him.
yes, that's what it was.
So wait, let me help. Let me help people that don't know what we're talking. Okay, so these guys, you're praying for these guys. They're falling down. We call it falling out in the spirit, being slain in the spirit. So they're falling out in the spirit. So these folks, they don't know proper protocol, which is great. I love it. But so they saw somewhere on television
Right.
that they saw people covering people up. So rather than just covering them up, they swaddle them. They cocooned them.
Completely wrapped up with their heads sticking out of the blanket. God bless them. I love them, but it
Well, that's interesting. I may try that the next round
maybe that's
on the altar.
the secret. Maybe I missed it all.
Maybe so. That's well. Well, a lot of parents, many parents, they want to raise children who genuinely love Jesus, and uh, you know, they don't want them just inheriting a religious tradition. I know that's like you, but what do you think makes the biggest difference in nurturing authentic faith at home? Well, what's the big deal about home nurturing faith?
Well, I'm just what I've run into in our, I was born and raised in Alabama, the buckle of the Bible Belt,
Mm,
and there's a lot of, and I'm going to go ahead and say this too, that sometimes religion gets a bad name, but sometimes it lays a foundation for when the real thing comes, you know how to spot it, right?
mm, mm.
But I just feel like that our success, and I'm saying that prayerfully, and I'm not gloating about it because I still pray for them every day because they face every kind of challenge you can imagine. But the success is that church was not some sort of sideshow or something you did outside of home, but we were the church, and wherever we went, we would live the same way in front of them as we lived in front of everybody else. They didn't see two different moms and dads, one in public and one in private. And, and I just feel like that they saw that this was the way to go because it was successful for us to live that way. So many of their friends and a lot of their friends' parents would get in trouble or their family would be in trouble. It's because they're living outside those lines. And the word, when our kids were little, and now some people are going to think this is crazy, but this is before they could read. I had construction paper, different colors that had Bible verses on it. And before bed at night, I'd tell them what one it was, and they'd quote it to me.
Mm.
They'd learn, they got the word in their heart. And I'm just, that word have I hid in my heart that I may not sin against you. So if you want to, the best thing you can do is to get the shot to stop it before it starts.
Wow.
Right?
Mm.
Don't
Hmm.
let sin get in and then try to get it out. Put the stuff in that keeps it out. And so, and I also, we were not Mennonites or whatever. We had a television, and I played loud music, and we went, we watched movies. We didn't watch every movie, but we tried to be culturally relevant with that, but by the same token, be set aside. And
Hmm.
I feel like it's possible because we did it and still doing it. So
Absolutely. Has there ever been a disappointment, unanswered prayer that, in hindsight, became one of maybe God's greatest gifts in your family story?
well, if they were praying to go secular music, then I was praying harder against it. So anyway, that's one. But you know, I, I had two experiences I'll share with you, and it just boils down to right when I got saved. You know, I had people come to me when if you go through a crisis, and they'd come and say, "Well, maybe the Lord didn't want that," or maybe I'm thinking, "Well, he's given it to others, or he's done this for others. Why would he do this for me?" And I remember sitting out I walked out my yard and I shook my fist at God and I was mad at him.
Mm.
Now, I mean, he could have struck me down right there, but then I went to this crazy church in Decatur, Alabama, and this little guy from Puerto Rico got up there and he preached, and he basically broke it down in a way that my engineering mind could understand it.
Wow.
And he just said, everything that's bad is the devil and everything that's good is God. And I thought, well, I can handle that. And that God's on my side, and that he's for me and not against me, and that all the promises of God are yes and amen to the glory of God the Father. So that I've got an enemy that's fighting to keep me from getting that. Now, the reason I bring that up is that I can't, there are times when the saying came to me that stuck with me is that, when you're facing a battle, you don't ask questions that you don't know the answer to. You ask questions you know the answer to. Is God on my side? Yes. Does God love me? You don't ask, why is this sickness come? Or because
Wow.
you don't have an answer for that. But you ask the questions you do have the answer for, because that'll build your faith. And so I don't know why this happened, but this is how it was. My dad's 80 years old, 82 years old. He has been a patriarch in my home city. He was a football coach, English teacher. He was a PE teacher. And then he went on to be the principal of the junior high and then the high school. The stadium is named after him. Okay.
Oh my! Wow.
And he's 80 years old, and 3 weeks before, 82 years old, and 3 weeks before he died, he prayed to receive Jesus as Lord of his life. And so at his funeral, I was able to tell all those classmates, all those teachers and people who'd been under his authority, I could tell them with my hand on his casket, I could say, you know what, my dad did a lot of great things.
Wow.
But the thing he was proudest of, and he told me this, is
goodness.
that 3 weeks ago, he let Jesus be Lord of his life. And so of all the things he did, none of those things are going to get him into heaven. But that one prayer will get him there. Well, see, so he did more right there with all of them than he did with his whole life. And so did God let him die? No, I think he got cancer and he died. That's what happened. And I fought the good fight of faith, but I couldn't, like I had found all these other remedies and ways to fight it like you're doing. Okay. Mm-hmm. But he was too scared of it. So he went to do what they said, and it just killed him. Mm. And so I'm saying that was one example of where it didn't turn out like I wanted, but maybe there was a greater good. Now, the other one is when my own daughter comes back from a missions trip, and suddenly she's got kidney failure. And they're scheduling her. She's sitting in a room after all this treatment and different thing, and sepsis came along, and she's sitting there. They're fixing to fit her with a permanent port. My young baby girl, they're going to fit her with a permanent port for dialysis for the rest of her life. And we've told people, and we've been praying, and I was down, and I told you this before, but I was down in the chapel praying, and I was shouting at God. I'm telling you, and I'm nobody, but I've laid this hand on total strangers and they've been healed. I went into a guy called me, and his daughter was in ICU on the machines, and her no brain waves, and they're breathing for her. And he brought me in there, and I told God on the way, I said, Lord, I don't want to go and just go through the motions. If you're not going to do this, then let's just don't go through the effort, because I don't want to play nice. I went back there in ICU, and I felt like I was supposed to go by myself. And we're going back there, and he says, I think you're supposed to go by yourself. So, boy, I went in there, and I'm hammering. I'm yelling at her and praying everything, and nothing changed visibly. I walked out into the hall, and there were the doctors with the girl's mother. And I grabbed the mother, and I says, when she wakes up, you call me. And when I walked out of there, I could feel every eye on my back. 45 minutes later, they went back there, and she's sitting up.
Sure.
She's still alive today.
Yes, sir.
So I've
Come
seen
on.
all this.
Amen.
Here's my daughter. And I'm just like, and I'm yelling in that prayer room, and the security guard comes in, and he says, can I help you? And I said, I'm praying for my daughter. He backs out of there. And we had probably 10,000 people online praying for them and praying for Taylor. Well, she went in for her kidney biopsy, and it came back normal. And she did a 180-degree turn and came out of that. That's the one in the middle. And see, the bad thing about this disease, this kidney thing, is it would have ruined her vocal cords. It would have made her gain weight, lose all her hair, and just so many things that were terrible. That would wreck this beautiful girl's future. She wasn't married yet. I mean, it was just one of these things to where the worst thing you could possibly write out on paper was handed her. And I'm so proud of her stance. But anyway, so I'm saying this to say, it didn't work with my dad to my satisfaction, but yet something in that worked for God anyway.
Wow. And
I'm just saying, what I'm trying to figure out is that we're here. This life is but a vapor.
Yes.
If you take the amount of time we're here based on eternity, it's not even a dot on the page. And if we focus about everything here, we're missing eternity. And that everything here is temporary. And, the minute I was conceived is the minute I started dying. And the minute I hit the earth, cells in me every day are not replenished, and I get older and older and older. So this life is only here for a moment. What matters is what you do with this life. what choice you make in this life. Will you receive what Jesus did as your own personal sacrifice and receive him as Lord of your life? Or will you reject him? Because one day that will be the one decision that will stand forever.
Yes.
I know I sound like a preacher, don't I? But
Oh, you sure do, but that's all right with me. You're in good company. No judgment here. I want you to tell this story because I know this story. You've told me this story. I want to know how you got baptized in the Holy Ghost and fire.
okay. All right. When I got saved, I was 23 years old,
Mm,
and I started going to this local ministry that called the Fire Escape. It was a coffee house, and they had a Bible study. And the first one I went to, I'm already 5 years older than everybody in there,
mm,
and they're all quoting from the Bible, and I'm lost as a ball in high weeds. And so I'm flipping through my Bible, acting like I'm looking up a cross reference or something, and I have no idea where the book of Romans is. Okay, I don't know what they're talking about. And so I went home and I took that Bible that I got in fourth grade for perfect attendance in Sunday school, which that was a lie. And so, and I opened it up and I started reading it, and I was in Matthew because somebody told me to start Matthew. So I started reading it and I thought, okay, that's good. And everything that I had ever heard before or spoke to me, I'd actually highlighted with my highlighter. And some pages were a solid yellow. Anyway, so, but when I got to Mark, I started reading it and I thought, that sounds a lot like that Matthew. And I thought, and so nobody ever taken me through and told me about, the Gospels and so forth and so on. But I just decided then that I was going to memorize the the verses and get them in my heart. And so I was at this Bible study, and this one guy, he said, he leans over and puts his hand on me and he says, would you mind if I pray in the Spirit? And I said, man, you can pray from the bathroom or you can pray from the chandelier. I don't know what you're talking about. And so he said, I said, sure, whatever. And so he started praying in tongues. And I was like, and I thought, what in the world? And so when he got done, I said, what was that? And he explained it to me. And I said, to him, do I need it? He said, well, you probably do. So on the way home from that Bible study, I pull in, there was a cemetery between where I home and where I was at that Bible study. So it's late at night, and I pull in that cemetery under this lighted cross. And I said, Jesus, I don't know what this is, but if you want me to have it, I want to have it. And man, I started praying in tongues, and I prayed so long my face started to cramp. I couldn't stop, and I didn't
oh
want to
my.
stop. And
Wow.
I called people and I said, "Hey, listen to this," and I pray in tongues, and they were just shouting. And I'm like I said, I'm just a few months old in the Lord, but I don't have any bad teaching to act against. I don't have any teaching. And so, like I've said before, I felt like I was in a shopping cart going down the aisle at Walmart, and I'm just grabbing everything off the shelf because I don't know if I'm gonna need it or not. In fact, when I met my wife, she had been raised in a real strict denomination.
Mm.
And when I first met her, I was telling her some of this. I mean, I'm like, we don't hardly know each other at all. And she said, so you mean you're like one of those that speaks in tongues? I said, yeah, you want to hear something? She said, stop.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, but
Man, you are raw. I'm
we got
telling
her.
you. Wow. So wait a minute. Let me help the people that are going, what is this today? What is this? Let me tell you, it's all good. But so you're okay. So you're at a graveyard.
Right,
You are speaking in tongues as the Lord gives utterance, just like in Acts chapter 2.
right.
And you're making these faces and these grimaces, and your face is freezing up basically
Well, it just,
because you're praying
I'm
so
talking so
hard.
much, my jaw starts to.
So you're cramping up. So I'm thinking about an innocent bystander, a passerby that is looking on this thing, watching you do this, is trying to figure out what kind of Hitchcock movie
Right.
this is, right?
Yeah.
That is so what a great, what a great story, bro. You are awesome. And I'm gonna let me give one final question here. And
Okay.
this is a bit personal, and it's kind of one of those things you think about. could this happen? What, 30 years from now? Let's talk about your grandkids. They listen to this conversation 30 years from today. Um, what's the one lesson about faith or family or purpose that you would hope that they would remember from you? What do you want to live a legacy to them on? What do you want them to know about you?
Well, I want them to know that to the best of my ability, that I was sold out, that I was that what they see is what they get, and that I'm the same person in any situation. Yeah, I like to laugh at things, and I think life is funny. And but I tell you this, I believe, and we've had this conversation, but I'm I'm hoping that as a legacy, that I will get to see his kingdom come and his will be done. And that when I read about the first church, and the acts that they performed and the miracles and the signs and wonders, that it was an everyday part of their life. And it wasn't just the first 12, because Paul was at least number 13, I mean,
Mm, mm,
way down the list. But what I'm getting at is that this wasn't, as some have said, just signs and wonders just for the beginning. Why would that be? If they weren't important, then why did Jesus perform them? If it wasn't important to bringing about his message, then why did he heal the sick? And why did he cast out devils? And why did he raise the dead? It's because it's important. And somewhere along the way, we have lost that. And as far as I can see, we see it crop up every now and then, but I'm talking about an everyday part of our life.
mm,
I feel like that part of it is this, that if we seek approval of the world, we lose approval of God.
mm.
If we seek for them to love us, then we've lost our influence. And I'm saying that maybe we should search to be peculiar again, not weird or strange, but
Mhm.
be peculiar. And and to be a vessel of honor, that he can share every good work with us. And I want my grandkids to see their grandfather to be the same person he's always been, and to see the real thing. I want them to see their parents, my children, going out and, oh, I can't wait for this. It's just that they're fixing to go out, and we're going to minister the gospel again, and we're going to see people be born again, and in the process of that, signs and wonders. I just know it's coming.
Mm.
And I feel like it's, not because we're anything special. We've just decided to do it, right?
Mhm.
That's all it takes, is
Yes.
somebody to just want it. And so I want that to be the legacy, because every generation, the sins of the father gets multiplied in the children.
Mm.
So I'm gonna have this talk with my children. They so far, I'm so proud of them. Uh, you know, they are all active in church, even when when they're off the road. They are active in church, and it's like, you know, there's just a lot to be said for good habits.
Absolutely.
There's a lot to be said for good practices. You
Yes.
may not, you may not see the fire from heaven every Sunday, but
Mm.
where it's going to be,
Mm.
right?
So good. So good. Yeah, absolutely. Well grounded kids.
Mm.
Great patriarch you are.
Oh,
Appreciate your heart so much. I know, sometimes we lift our kids up on our shoulders and people tend to look up to them and they forget about the one that they're standing on. And there's a difference, some kids, they just ride on the backs of their parents, but then some kids stand on the shoulders, and that's what we want. We
yeah,
want them going up higher. We want them
absolutely.
doing more. We want the best for them. And I feel that same way as a parent towards Charlie. I tell you, man, you are an awesome guy.
Well,
Appreciate your heart, your humor, your music, your legacy, your kids, your family. I love being your friend, let alone your brother. So you're going to have to put up with me for a long
I'm
time
I'm
when we
excited about this.
when we die and go to heaven. You're going to have to hang around me a little bit. So, but until then, we're going to celebrate what God's doing in you right now, because God has moved you out of the local pastorate in Hartselle, Alabama, to Nashville, Tennessee, and you're relaunching ministry. You're going to be doing, I guess, evangelistic ministry. You're going to be out ministering in churches and places and venues,
Yeah,
singing, apparently maybe ministering with your children, with Cain,
yeah.
the musical group. I mean, man, it is you're just now getting started. Abraham, when did he get started? About 80,
Yeah, 80.
something like
Yeah.
that. So there you go, man. You got a few years before you really get started. So
Well, I've got a day
so
coming up August 2nd
yeah, you're coming. Yeah, yeah,
in
and where's that
Decatur,
going to be?
Alabama, Revive Church, 6 a.m., 6 a.m., 6 p.m. And we're going to do music and ministry, and we're really praying for an outpouring. And I'm also trying to gear up and possibly my kids will be there that night. I just found that out today. They're coming home off the road just to participate in that. So we'll probably get
Fantastic.
them up and do something too.
Oh, wow.
But thank you for this opportunity.
Right, absolutely. Now, Charlie, where could someone get a hold of you? What
Uh,
find your ministry page or what have you? Can you just help us?
well, I'm on Facebook. I was on Instagram, but I don't understand it, so I'm off. Uh, but I also you can email me at cainzone@yahoo.com. CAINZONE at Yahoo. And anybody's got any prayer requests or any ministry need, whatever, if you want to just make contact with us, I'd love to hear from you. And look us up on Facebook. Have to spell it right, CHRLEYCAIN, and you'll find me. So thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you so much. And I want to thank you to all of our Ride or Die listeners out there. If you would go to our website, www.zaministries.org. That's zamministries.org. And check us out. We've got some material on there. We've got some books that we've written. And, maybe keep up with us, like, subscribe, follow, all of those good words that we talk about in modern technology right now. You can follow us on different platforms, Spotify, excuse me, what is TikTok, and so Instagram and all of the other platforms. So check us out, Randall Burton and Zam Ministries. And God bless you. Have a great day.